Hello, Tom. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Great to be here and a pleasure to meet you, sir.
Uh, Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to interview you, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay, friends. So we have Tom Silver, who is, I should say, Tom Gold for the fellow hypnotherapists like us. He has 35 years of experience. Tom Silver has been a certified hypnotherapist with a private current practice, Medford, Oregon, and past hypnotherapy practice in Westlake Village and Ojai Hypnotherapy. He specializes in fear and phobia removal, habit control, stress and anxiety elimination, smoking cessation, weight control, confidence and motivation, and focus and concentration, sleep deprivation, elimination, regression therapy, and many more. Tom teaches scientific hypnosis and ERT. So, what ERT stands for and how the scientific hypnosis evolved is the theme of today's interview. So, let us know more about Tom's journey with hypnosis from his own words. So, Tom, very boring question. How did you get into hypnosis? I ask this
Well,
to everyone.
well, I think that's a great question.
Okay.
Well, when I was young, I was always interested in the mind, in the consciousness. I was interested in books on spiritualism,
Okay.
psychic books, Buddhism,
Oh,
and Taoism. And then as I grew up, I was working. I had a job in the record industry. I was a marketing director, and my job was terminated. And my brother approached me and said there was an opening at a hypnosis school for a cameraman, someone who
oh
could
my God.
videotape the teachers teaching hypnosis in the course. And that school was called HMI. It was called the Hypnosis Motivation Institute.
Institute.
So I was going to make $10 an hour credit. And after about a year, I would have about 19 or something like 17 or $1,900 credit, which would enable me to go to the program, to the course. So I gladly took the job as a cameraman. And my job was actually videotaping. I was on the stage next to the teachers, the trainers who were trainers who also had life practices.
Wow.
They weren't textbook trainers. It wasn't someone that just went to a trainer's program and now they're teaching without experience. These were experienced teachers, which I think are the best type.
Hmm.
Um, so my job was to get to videotape them working with the clients, the subjects, and then also videotaping the audience's reactions. And it was really fabulous because I got to learn so much by just tuning in visually into the camera and watching them work and watching the techniques and the methods that they had used in the field of hypnosis. So
Wow.
after about a year of that, I was able to go through the course. And so I went through the course, which was a year program,
Mhm.
and it included workshops and case histories and people coming in and the trainers teaching them. I worked under the direction of a gentleman named John Kappas,
Hmm.
who was the founder of HMI, and his brother Alex Kappas, who
Okay.
was my personal mentor in the training course. So after a year of going through the course, I was certified as a hypnotherapist, and I started my private practice. So I had a little practice at home in an office, and also I had a practice over at the HMI clinic at their facilities.
Wow.
And I worked with people at their facilities for probably 2 to 3 years.
Mhm.
Now, this was back in 1985, 86, and 87. So
Oh.
I've been in this field a long time. Back then, there were not that many hypnotists or hypnotherapists as there is now. The internet and all the training courses and everything else has opened up hypnosis to millions and millions of people, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
So I started my private practice, and then after a few years, I started getting really good at what I did, but I started changing the methods.
Hmm.
See, I realized that what I learned was a great basic foundation of hypnosis. If you think about it, all of the hypnotists or mesmerists or magnetists, as they were called, or electrobiologists in America in the 1850s and 60s, and suggestive therapeutic technicians back in the late 1800s were all mostly doctors.
Okay.
And when you think about it, Mesmer, Franz Anton Mesmer, who they consider the father of hypnotism, like Dr. Braid, James Braid, who created the word hypnosis out of Greek mythology, the Greek god Hypnos, the god of sleep, they were all medical doctors. And Charcot and Bernheim and all these different, people that had hypnosis clinics in hospitals in the 1800s. John Elliotson, who was an amazing doctor. He wrote a book on human physiology, and he used to conduct a lot of mesmerism and hypnosis in the hospital with patients with tremendous success. So really, when you think about the science as it was back in the 1800s, it was utilized by some of the top medical doctors in the world, in France and in England and things like that. So after a few years of my internship at the school, I branched out into doing my own thing, do my own practice. But at that time, I realized that the methods I learned were good, basic, elementary methods of hypnotism.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like people learn the progressive relaxation, right?
Yes.
Progressive relaxation was going on since the late 1800s. Or they learn a fixated focus of concentration on an object. Braid used to use a coin. Some people have you stare at the wall or stare at an object. And what they're doing is they're creating a visual fixation state in order to bypass the conscious to activate the subconscious in the state that we call hypnosis. So what happened when I left my practice, I was doing my practice in my own home, my hypnotherapy practice. I wasn't charging much money because I wanted the experience.
Okay.
See, it's not what you learn in school. It's what you learn through the art of experience.
Yes.
That's how you get really good, because you learn what doesn't work as well and what works very well. Now, you heard me say that. I didn't say you learn from what you fail at or what you succeed at, because I don't believe in failure. Yeah. I believe in not doing something, not getting out there and starting a practice like a lot of people do. How many people do you know, or do the listeners or viewers know, that have gone to many hypnosis courses, but yet they still haven't started that practice? It's like they're looking for some holy grail, some secret wand to hypnotize people. And the whole thing is experience makes you good at what you do. Yeah. So, and when I left the school, I started doing some stage hypnosis. We talked about that a little earlier before we were on the podcast. I was doing demonstrational hypnosis, going into groups of people and hypnotizing them and testing suggestibility. Okay. Now, remember, hypnosis is considered an art and a science, and I teach the medical science of hypnosis. But what is the art of hypnosis? When we think about an art, sometimes people think about a painting on the wall or Rembrandt or Michelangelo or whatever. But the art is the what we might call the creativity of how you execute the process of hypnotizing a person, how you execute the process of the right linguistical communication to the client. We can call that suggestion. We can call it mental messages. We can call it the transmission of suggestion into the subconscious biocomputer. Because when we think about our mind is a dual processing computer. It is. It's one of the most powerful computers in the world, except it has malfunctions. It has malware. And the malware is the negative thoughts and negative emotions that we continue to believe is our reality and limits our true spectrum of our quality of life. Make sense?
Yes, a lot.
Yes. So I don't want to, because I can talk about this for a long time, but I'll summarize. So at that point, I started doing radio shows. I was asked to do a television show. And then an agent from Taiwan back in 1994 came out and approached me and asked me if I would be the first hypnotist to bring the science of hypnosis to Asia. So in 1994, there were no hypnotherapists in Asia at all.
Oh, okay.
There was none. There was psychologists, I believe, and medical doctors, but nobody knew about the science of hypnotism in the Asian in Asia.
Okay.
So there was only one gentleman named Martin St. James who was a stage hypnotist from Australia, and he was doing a stage hypnosis TV show in Japan.
Okay.
So I went to Taiwan in 1994,
Mhm.
and I worked on a method to hypnotize people through an interpreter in a foreign language. Now,
Wow.
I was told by John Kappas and all these other renowned hypnotists that it couldn't be done. They believed it couldn't be done. That was their truth.
Hmm.
See, I didn't have a truth that said it can't be done.
Yeah.
I had a truth that said, let's explore the possibilities of creating reality.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks, 14 hours a day, I had a professor working with me.
Mhm.
I met
Yeah.
in Taiwan, I met a professor named Dr. Wong
Mhm.
in 1994. And Dr. Wong and I worked for about 14 hours a day for about 2 weeks to crack the formula of code of hypnotizing through an interpreter. And
Oh,
very simply, I can tell everyone how it's done, and I'm happy to tell you how it's done.
yeah.
It's done when you work with somebody that understands the science of hypnosis. I had to educate the doctor on what hypnosis was, on what the words sleep and trance and deeper meant, because those are very confusing words to people, although we're all trained in those words, which don't really make too much sense logically to a person that's not been trained in hypnotism. And we figured out the code was a cultural interpretation of the word.
Okay.
See, without the cultural interpretation, if it's a literal interpretation, it misses the meaning of what that word represents to that specific culture.
Hmm.
Like when Dr. Wong would interpret the word sleep, it came out as interpreted the word freeze. So when he said sleep, people would just stop
Okay.
like that. But he interpreted it with the word that the people in Taiwan understood, the Mandarin language of smile from your heart. So when he said smile from your heart in their language, they would smile or laugh.
Okay.
So it was a cultural interpretation. So I worked with Dr. Wong, and I worked in Taiwan from 1994 to 1999 on and off. I did a TV series hypnotizing the famous Taiwan celebrities, Chinese celebrities, and showed everything from past life regression, reincarnation,
Oh,
to fun stuff, to entertainment stuff. But I got a chance to educate the viewers on what hypnosis was. Every show, they would ask questions because I wanted to open it up to science, because that's my goal in life, is to bring the scientific understanding of hypnosis so we can have a real acceptance around the world as hypnosis as a neurophysiological science that it really is. And so I did the TV series, and I was asked by the Taiwan Department of Defense if I would work on the biggest weapons crime and murder in Taiwan and France's history. The murder of a procurement officer, Captain Yin, the purchase of defective battleships from France, the Thompson Shipbuilding Company, and the misappropriation of 2.8 billion US dollars
oh,
that were embezzled, put in secret bank accounts in South Africa and in Switzerland. Mainland Chinese people paid off to keep quiet so that these French frigate fighters could be sold to the Taiwan Navy, which is something that mainland China would have never approved of. So they asked me if I would be willing to hypnotize people to get the truth out of them.
mhm.
Now, that was in 1995, after I set a world's record and hypnotized 3,800 people through an interpreter Mandarin Chinese in a world's record show. So at that point, I declined because it was too dangerous. I might get killed or disappear. No one would ever find me again.
Yeah.
Tamu, the hypnotist, would be gone off the spectrum of Earth. So I declined. But as I kept going back to Taiwan to teach, I taught at the police academy. I talked about forensic hypnosis. I taught at the Buddhist Association. I did lectures all around the country. So then in 1996, my agent asked me again, his name was Xu Ming. He asked me again if I would work with the Taiwan Department of Defense and Secret Service because they were at a dead end. They couldn't figure out who killed Captain Yen and who was involved in the crime. And at that time, they already imprisoned over 15 to 20 Taiwan Navy military officers were already in prison, including the gentleman they thought committed the murdered Captain Yin. So I said, well, I'll do it. I thought, well, if I'm a scientific researcher, who gets a chance to hypnotize prisoners in a foreign country's prison that wouldn't tell the truth to see if we can activate their truest memory in the subconscious?
Okay.
Because we know when we talk about memory that the subconscious mind, if it's conducted correctly, could be the best number one presenter of true, accurate memory files. Because it's the conscious mind that distorts. And so they didn't want memory contamination, because that's what occurs when you investigate someone, you ask somebody questions, or under hypnosis, you influence the subconscious to come up with information that you've implanted in an indirect suggestion. Make sense?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I went to Taiwan, and this time I wasn't in the newspapers. I wasn't on TV. It was too dangerous. So I was hidden on secret military bases, actually. And so I created a formula to talk to the witness or the prisoner and to get to know them. And then I did experiment on various hypnosis techniques, methods, to see if I can get the conscious out of the way and get into the memory files in the subconscious without conscious interpretation or analysis. And the first person I worked with was a gentleman that was accused of the murder. His name was Colonel Ku. I think it's K-U-O, and his American name was Alex. So I went into the military police base, and I walked into this hypnosis the investigation room, and it looked like a cold room. It almost looked like a place where they torture people or something. So I said, this is not the right environment for me to work with this person. So we turned it into like an office, a hypnotherapy office. Brought in pictures on the wall and flowers and everything else, and made it look more presentable. So the guy came in, they brought him in, handcuffed, shackled, blindfolded, wearing a military striped prisoner's outfit. And boy, was I scared. I thought, oh my gosh, this guy's a real prisoner. And so I worked with him, got to know him, did the hypnosis process. We were able to regress him to the crime dates in 1993. But the thing I did, which was fantastic, is I did not do the investigation. I taught the government. I taught the head of police, the head of technology, the head of intelligence, counterintelligence, the head of the military, and other different Secret Service officers how to ask non-leading, non-emotional questions to the subject that I regressed back to the time period of when the colonel was murdered. And with the information they gathered, and it was all through an interpreter, Mandarin Chinese. And those officers were writing notes. They got so much information out of these guys. It was really fantastic. It was so amazing to see that if forensic hypnosis is conducted correctly, it could be an amazing tool, not just for witnesses or victims, but also to get information out of accused prisoners or possible perpetrators. So it worked really well, and I thought I was going home, and I was all happy to go home because this was a pretty scary deal for me.
Yeah.
But then they told me they wanted me to hypnotize the second guy, who was an active statistical professor, colonel in the Taiwan Navy, who didn't believe in hypnosis, who thought it was fake. He saw some Paul McKenna TV shows or something of people singing and dancing and thought it was all fake. He spoke English because he was trained, he was educated at a university in America. So I'll just tell you about this second guy. So they bring him in. Now, don't forget, these people aren't voluntarily willing to come in to see me.
Yes.
The government is ordering them to come in to meet me. Now, I was a little bit afraid that I could get, killed. So I used a fake name. I forgot what my name was, but I used a fake name, even though people had seen me on the newspapers, on TV shows and stuff. So the guy came in, they brought him in. First thing he said to me, he goes, hypnosis is fake. It's not real. I don't believe it's real. It's fake. It's just people singing and dancing and acting silly. And he says, you got 15 minutes to try to hypnotize me. Just 15 minutes. So I thought, wow, this guy's a tough one. He speaks English, so maybe I should hypnotize him in English because his English he speaks it very well. He doesn't have to interpret it. So I thought, okay. So we sit him down in the secret room. And this time we had moved to a second location up in the mountains because things were getting a little bit dangerous for me. They had Secret Service agents on the streets and everything, plain clothes, to protect me from getting killed, getting murdered. So, so he came in to see me, and I said, well, I got to try to do something to bypass his conscious. I'm going to try a shock induction. Now, you heard of the word shock induction,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So what's your definition of a shock induction?
Like create some kind of confusion and shock the person that the the conscious mind is bypassed and we get access to the subconscious.
Great interpretation. Now, under medical science or hypnosis science, it's exactly what you said, but it's the unexpected overstimulation through a physical kinesthetic jolt to the body that overactivates the central nervous system. And when it overactivates the central nervous system, all this electrical current goes from the spinal cord into all the nerves within the body. So what it does is it jumps the sympathetic nervous system. So you have a sympathetic and a parasympathetic nervous system, which are all part of the autonomic nervous system, the respiratory, circulatory system, the beating of our heart, the body temperature, the blood flow, through the veins and things like that. Yeah. So what a shock induction does is it overstimulates the sympathetic nervous system. It produces a surge of adrenalines, epinephrines, and cortisols into the body where the person jumps. And at that point, you have a spontaneous reaction in what we might call the primitive mind or reptilian brain of the fight and flight that's in the sympathetic nervous system. So the fight and flight means you either counterattack or it renders you unconscious, escape, like someone fainting. So you escape out of this extreme physical brainwave activity, this very strong stress into the nervous system. So I had the guy concentrating on something, like his hands pulling together. I'm looking at his hands, but I knew I needed to distract his conscious mind because he was under control. So right away I said to him, what's that over there? Real quick, what's that over there? As soon as he turned, I grabbed him and I jolted the body real hard, a real jolt, a real trigger, and he dropped. He dropped into the most profound receptive state of hypnosis. He dropped into what we might call theta and delta, brainwave frequency states, what we might call into a somnambulistic hypnotic state. And at that point, the government would come in and it was all being recorded and there were government agents watching what was going on. And at that point, we conducted the process. Now, remember, he said he could only be there for 15 minutes. So about 9 hours later, 9 hours later, under the influence of hypnosis, and regressing him to every specific date and time in December of 1993 to see if he was one of the perpetrators, one of the killers of Captain Yin. His body started spasming. He started getting these jolts and things. And I said to the government, I said, okay, it's time to leave the room. I've got to take him out of hypnosis. So when they all left the room and they had all this information, I took him out of hypnosis. I reactivated his conscious. Now, when people say, well, I woke him up, that's a mistake because they're not asleep. So you're not waking up a person who's not asleep.
Yes.
They're in a frequency receptive state of acceptance of suggestion without interpretation of the upper part of the brain, the cognitive process. The frontal lobe has been switched off, basically. So he came out of hypnosis. I took him out very quickly, and he looked at his watch and he saw all those hours were missing. And he exploded. He started screaming and yelling, and what'd you guys do to me? Screaming. And it was all done in Mandarin Chinese, so I didn't know if he confessed to the murder, he's going to be executed or what. So I got scared and I ran out of the room. And I ran out of the room and I hid in the bathroom. I thought, oh my God, what am I doing here? Why am I even here? I want to restore the morality of the Navy. I want to clear the Captain Yin, the murdered captain, because I believed he was an honorable military officer. I want to, do a lot of good for the country. That's why I came there, to do good for the country. And so the head of police came in and saw me, Mr. Lee, and he looks at me, and I'm against the wall in the bathroom thinking, what am I doing? And I got real scared because when the guy screamed and yelled, I thought he might come up to me and snap my neck or something or attack me. So then the agent walks in and says, you got to get back into the room. You're the big hypnotist. You can't run away. You got to get back in the room. So I walked back in the room, nice and calm. And Dr. Wong was talking to the military officer, talking in English. And the guy kept yelling, what did you do to me? And Dr. Wong said, well, we tried to hypnotize you, but you fell asleep. And so we couldn't hypnotize you. You were sleeping. And then you woke up out of sleep. That's what he said. And I think the guy believed it. And so then at the end, they were taking him out of the room. And he was like all weak and tired and beat, I mean, he was drained. And so they're kind of carrying him out. And as he's leaving, he shakes my hand and he goes, Mr. Silver. So he knew who I was. He said, Mr. Silver, I hope you never have to hypnotize me again. See? And so then he left the room and they took him to his house and they thought maybe he might commit suicide because he was so confused that 8 hours, 9 hours of his life was gone. And maybe he thought he confessed to a crime, the murder, and he was going to be executed or spend the rest of his life in prison. So then my agent came up to me and said to me, he goes, that man should thank you because what he said under hypnosis proved he was innocent.
Oh, wow.
So the government doesn't have to, wiretap his phones and keep surveillance on him anymore. What he said proved he was innocent of the crime. So the next day, and he was just sleeping for hours and hours and hours. And he had his shoes because they leave their shoes outside their house. And so they were wondering if he was going to live or commit suicide. So the next day he came out of his room, put his slippers on, and he was a free man. Isn't that fantastic?
Yes, amazing.
So the hypnosis actually saved his life and proved he was innocent. So I went back again in 1997 in July. That was January. I was awarded a gold plate of honor. I don't have it with me here, but I was awarded a gold plate of honor for my work on the case. And then I went back again in 1999. And in 1999, here's a photo of the gold plate of honor.
Wow.
See it?
Yes.
And these are some of the government agents. And there's Dr. Wong next to me on that second photo.
Okay.
And those are some of the people I worked with on the case, some of the government agents.
Wow.
But it was amazing. And I wrote a book on it.
Okay.
The How to Book a Forensic Hypnosis Investigation. And again, How did I learn? I learned from the experience of doing something that someone said couldn't be done. I did not have a pre-belief system it couldn't be done.
Hmm.
So then I went back to America, and I came back one more time and worked on the case again, and then just continued my work in hypnotism and pioneering scientific hypnosis.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting? Isn't that
Yes.
interesting?
Yes.
I have so many stories. I mean, my wife wrote the book on my life
Okay.
based on the crime, and it's called Kill the
Kill the
Hypnotist.
Hypnotist.
Yeah, because that's exactly what I thought was going to happen. And on the third secret mission,
Uh-huh.
the government gave my ex-wife $1 million Lloyd's of London life insurance policy for 10 days in case I didn't make it back on the third mission. And I still went back and worked on the case again. We re-hypnotized people to validate the information was correct.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was really fascinating. So that's a little bit of history on me. Isn't that something?
Yes. Oh my God. I couldn't even imagine what were your, like, these things are possible in hypnotherapy as well.
Possible. They are in hypnotherapy. And here, if you look at this from the Louisiana Police Sheriff's Department,
Uh-huh.
I was invited to teach some of the police, some of the sheriffs,
Wow.
forensic hypnosis.
Forensic hypnosis.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is really neat. And again, the main purpose is to gather information, to acquire evidence, not to use to prosecute a perpetrator, but use to gather information that a person can't remember, or has altered, contaminated, distorted, embellished, exaggerated, or maybe forgot. Because the subconscious has the library of memories in those folders and files.
Mind-blowing stories, Tom.
Yeah.
Okay, so how is can you please, of course, you shared how this, various experiments, scientific hypnosis evolved. But however, could you please help? What is scientific hypnosis and how is it different from the clinical hypnotherapy trainings and certifications which we usually get to see?
Well, we can say that scientific hypnosis is clinical hypnosis,
Okay.
but it's conducted on the realm of medical science. And I think that is so important that we utilize scientific processes and diagnostic tools to validate a ratio change of consciousness.
Okay.
So when we think of the brain is the organ, correct? Just like the lungs are an organ. The brain is an organ.
Yes.
But there is a mechanism within the brain that has all these pathways, neural pathways and electrical currents going on. And that is the mind. So the mind is a computer within the brain. And if we think about computer technology, modern technology, we have computers which operate on a dual processing system. We have the RAM, which is the screen, what I'm looking at you right now on the screen, which has a certain amount of memory. And then we have the hard drive. And that hard drive could have terabytes of memory. It has the most memory. So when we think about the hard drive as having the memory, Okay. Hopefully you'll be able to edit it when my computer stops. Yeah. So when we think about the mind as a dual processing computer, we have our thoughts, which most people use successfully incorrectly. Most people are very successful in the negative outcome of their life, or their fears, or their habits, or addictions, because they're thinking about them and they're triggering the emotional activity from the subconscious, whether that's fear or sadness or anger or stress, we are the operators of our mind. So most people are operating their minds successfully incorrectly. We teach them how to operate their minds correctly.
Oh.
So we have our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, scientists say 5% of your brain power, 10%. Different scientists will say different percentages, but the thought mind is the weakest part of our mind. The emotion mind, the memory mind, the habit mind, the mind that operates all of our physiological, biological changes in the body is located in the lower part of the brain. So we call that the subconscious. So if we think about the word subconscious, all it means is below conscious. If this is conscious up in here, this area, subconscious is activity down in the lower part of the brain. Now, when we think about memory and you use hypnosis, most people talk about the mind. They talk about, even hypnotists talk about the conscious, the unconscious, and the subconscious. Is that correct? Have you heard about
that's what I believe. So, Tom.
Okay. So what is the difference? I'm going to ask you this question because I find this very interesting.
Yeah.
What is the difference between the conscious,
Mm-hmm.
the unconscious, and the subconscious?
Okay. A conscious, which our logical, analytical part of us, which we are using like in our awareness. Subconscious is little bit deeper layer of the mind where all our emotions, beliefs, and conditionings, everything is stored like a database there. An unconscious mind is something which takes care of all the involuntary functions of our body.
Beautiful. You're one of the first persons I've asked that question that actually understood what the unconscious does. The unconscious is the automatic operation of all the muscles, nerves, fibers in the body, the organ, the heart beating, everything else. It takes care of all of our autonomic nervous systems and ideomotor responses, things that we don't have to consciously think about doing. We don't have to consciously think, okay, well, I have to take a breath in now. Hold on a second. Now I have to exhale. Now I have to blink. We don't think about these things.
Yes.
These are all done on a automatic operation of the brain and body integration. Yes. Now, memory. This is another question. Where is our memory stored?
Just to metaphorically tell, in the subconscious mind, but to scientifically say our whole body saves the memory.
Brilliantly stated, because most memories have a physiological connection, kinesthetic connection. Mm-hmm. Now, short-term memory is in the conscious mind. Like I remember that my internet thing stopped and we had to restart again. Okay. Now, also, we have long-term memory. Long-term memory could be triggered through the conscious mind, the thought that brings back a memory that we trigger from the subconscious. Long-term memory is what students utilize when they take a test. Mm-hmm. And they go in to take an exam and they look at a question and it triggers the answer, which has already been stored. It's already been processed into the subconscious processors. Now, there's another part of the mind that the hypnotists never talk about, but medical science and doctors know about it. And this is important. So your viewers get to actually learn about a different part of the mind. So if I think about this morning when I woke up and got out of bed and I was a little tired, and I thought, well, maybe I should take a shower to, create more activity to make me feel more refreshed and things like that. And I went to have a cup of coffee, but the coffee cup that has a built-in heater wasn't functioning. So I drank the coffee and it was a little cold. See, I'm remembering all these things that occurred in the past, right? Mm-hmm. They're not information that's coming in now. So we can say it's in the conscious memory, but what it's really in is in the pre-conscious. So we have conscious, we have pre-conscious, and we have subconscious. All repressed memory, all memory triggered or activated under the influence of hypnosis through regression is subconscious. All memory of the past that I can trigger from the conscious mind, it's not all short-term memory, because some of it could be memory that happened years ago, but that's stored in the upper files in what's called the pre-conscious.
Pre-conscious.
Is that interesting?
Yes.
Yeah, so the viewers and the hypnotists out there and hypnotherapists out there, now you understand there are four different areas of brain activity: the conscious, the pre-conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious. So we can say the unconscious is located in the subconscious, but all those areas of mind can be influenced under the science of hypnosis.
Wow.
That's what's so fantastic. Under the science of hypnosis, you can activate or deactivate, you can amplify or de-amplify the central nervous system, the electrical impulses that go to the nerves in the body. You can amplify or de-amplify the body energy or relaxation within the body that changes the sympathetic tone and the parasympathetic tone, those two nervous systems. Under the influence of hypnosis, you can change the autonomic nervous system. That's what hypertension is. It's an emotion that activates the pressure on the heart and everything else, meaning that hypnosis, the science of hypnosis, scientific hypnosis, can influence almost every organ or nerve within the body. Now, I wrote this book. This is part of my training course.
Okay.
And this is the training course that I teach around the world, and in clinical hypnosis and scientific hypnosis. And if you look at the top, scientific hypnosis and medical hypnosis integration.
Yes.
And that's what I believe is so important. We need to realize that hypnosis is a real science.
Yes.
And if we can educate people on hypnosis as a real science, doctors will believe it, respect it. Scientists will believe it, respect it. All types of other therapists, licensed psychologists, psychiatrists, and other practitioners will understand it and accept it as an additional complementary of mental medicine, as a modality of the science that it truly is. And that's why been my mission for all these years. And my mission for all these years is to prove that hypnosis is a science based on brainwave frequency activation, deactivation, and technology. Brainwave frequency, neurofeedback. That is the key, is understanding how the mind operates. Because the operation of the mind will determine the influence and the power of the suggestion under the process we call hypnosis.
Yeah.
Isn't that exciting?
Yes.
And when you look at it, like this young lady in China, because I'm teaching courses in China, she's utilizing, I have her hooked to an EEG electroencephalograph machine. So I'm monitoring the brainwave frequencies, the upper frequencies and the lower frequencies, the upper activity and the lower activity. Wow. And so I can actually monitor and see when a person is in the most influenced state of hypnosis receptivity. And that's why I call it a science, because I train medical doctors all around the world. I'm going to be in Malaysia in July, teaching the science of hypnosis, teaching people how to utilize the electroencephalograph machines to monitor the changes of activity within the brain, because the mind operates on different spectrums, activity and frequencies. And this is what I teach. This is what I've been pioneering for 30 years, is the understanding of neurophysiological hypnosis. And once you can understand it as a science, once you can truly understand it as a science, then the operator, the hypnotist belief system is enhanced. See, if I don't believe hypnosis is real and I'm a hypnotist, I'm going to be very unsuccessful in hypnotizing people.
Yes.
And also the communication of hypnosis is important. The words we use are so important because sleep, trance, deeper and deeper, and inductions are incorrect, old, archaic words that need to be redefined.
Okay.
So the linguistical communication of what hypnosis is in modern science terminology is more important than ever before. And that's what I teach in my courses.
Okay.
So, I do not use the word sleep and deeper and deeper. Well, I was trained that way at HMI. 3210 sleep. So if I'm using a word sleep, but yet I'm creating an open receiver of suggestion, a highly influenced mind, why am I using the word sleep? Sleep is the dormancy of the intellectual part of the mind, the lowering of conscious brain activity, conscious activity, why the activity of the subconscious is going on in the state of dreams, releasing information, deleting folders and activity, and basically rebooting in the morning. So the mind, so you wake up with a more clearer mind, free of all the spontaneous or the activity that was presented yesterday or last week or last month. That's what dreaming is, releasing of data, so that you have a more powerful open computer when you waken in the morning from sleep.
Yeah.
When you become more conscious in the activity in the upper part of the brain when you are in the waking state. So isn't that fascinating?
Yes, amazing.
So to answer your question, I teach neurofeedback.
Okay.
Back in the 50s and the 60s, when I was younger in the 80s, I used to teach biofeedback.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if you know what biofeedback is, but biofeedback is a medical device that monitors the autonomic nervous system.
Okay.
So when we think about that, biofeedback was a kinesthetic physiological application of putting sensors on fingers, but it would monitor the activity of the heart beating, the blood circulation, and the body temperature. It's called galvanic skin response.
Okay.
So in hypnosis, the goal is to put somebody into a relaxed, receptive state, correct?
Yes.
So when you're in that relaxed, receptive state, what happens to your breathing? Does it become more increased?
No.
Or does it become more calm?
More calmer.
Yeah. So when it's becoming more calm, what's going on in the nervous system? The parasympathetic nervous system tone is increasing, creating more of a state of relaxation. So hypnosis is a state of physical muscle relaxation and focused concentration. What do you think?
Yeah, beautiful. Simplified definition.
Simplified, yes. And I'm not hypnotizing my clients or patients. I'm teaching them the process for them to have their experience of going into a receptive state of hypnosis.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, next question.
Okay. Could you please also thank you for explaining what this scientific hypnosis is all about. And could you please share about the emotion replacement therapy? What does that ERT mean?
Absolutely. If anyone wants to get a hold of me, you can contact me at tom@tomsilver.com, tom@tomsilver.com, or go to my website, universityhypnotherapy.com, universityhypnotherapy.com, or tomsilver.com. See, I believe that once we can create a consistency of high academic understanding of hypnosis and have training courses that are all working together with the understanding of medical, physiological, psychological, scientific hypnosis, then it'll be truly accepted. Many schools teach different methods of hypnosis, from the pocket watch to all hypnosis is past life regression or regression therapy. And I think it's important that we start building a platform of high academic education in the understanding of neurophysiological scientific hypnosis. So ERT, emotion replacement therapy, process I've developed over 30 years ago. I continue to teach it in my training courses, and it's really, it's a beautiful science. And it's also, I certify people to become emotion replacement therapists.
Okay.
Yeah. So remember, with hypnosis, what are we doing? We're trying to re-educate the general public,
Hmm.
because the general public thinks of hypnosis as that you're out of control, someone's manipulating you, you're like this zombie, yes, master, or like Count Dracula, I want to suck your blood, look in my eyes, and all this stuff, all this confusion. But really, what hypnosis is a process of teaching your clients how to tell their mind when to think, what to think, how to think, and when to stop thinking. So if I have control of my mind, if I have mind control, then I don't have to buy into my mind dictating my limited belief system or emotional feelings that are counterproductive to my quality of life or your quality of life.
Yeah.
Now, emotion replacement therapy. I believe every emotion, because we discussed that earlier, emotions are recorded in the subconscious.
Yeah.
They're downloaded into the hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
Every emotion has a physical connection. And you had stated that. And we think about that. Every emotion is also programmed into our body and into specific organs within our body, and even programmed into various nervous systems within the body. So let's look at the emotion of fear. Now, fear is an emotion. Fear is an activator through the adrenal system of epinephrine's adrenaline, right? So when a person's in a fearful state, they're not calm and relaxed. Yeah. Their body is amplified.
Yes.
Their sympathetic nervous system has been pumped up. The juices in the body and the electrical current within the body has been elevated, right?
Yes.
So when a person feels fear, their heart's beating faster. Yeah. They might start to perspire. Mm-hmm. They might start to feel dizzy or nervous. And an extreme fear could be called a phobic reaction, a phobia. And we can look at a phobia as a overpowerful fear, magnified fear. Fear is good also because fear keeps us alive. It protects us.
Yes.
If I didn't have a little fear, excuse me, if I didn't have a little apprehension about standing too far over a cliff, I'd fall off that cliff. Yes. So fear is also in a general state, gives us the ability to protect ourselves from dangerous environments or situations. But when it becomes extreme, it becomes overreactive negative imagination. Overstimulates our nervous system, creates high blood pressure, hypertension. It could create cardiac arrest. It could create a stroke. It can be the overamplification and the bursting of nervous systems. So when we think about fear, it's physical and it's mental. So does it start in the body first, or does it start in the mind first? What do you think?
Mind.
It can start in the mind. Can it start consciously, or maybe in an unconscious state? What do you think?
Depends. Or pre-conscious. It can start unconsciously as well, because acting as a trigger, and person doesn't even know. Sometimes the conscious. It all depends. Like it's whether it's origin of the fear of the trigger of a fear.
Beautifully stated. Oh my gosh. When are we going to, when am I coming to India to work with you? Yeah. I want to come to India and I want to work with you. You're fantastic. Absolutely. Fear can be triggered through an environment, through a thought, through an auditory stimulation, a sound, through a taste, through a smell. Yeah. So it could be a involuntary automatic response or reaction too. Yeah. So with ERT, and we think about addiction, if we're going to look at all these emotions, what are emotions doing? They're stimulating various chemicals through the hypothalamic limbic system. So each time we feel an emotion, a chemical is produced. That chemical could be, it could be cortisol, it could be stress, it could be a hormone, it could be adrenaline, it could be a feel-good chemical, dopamine, serotonin. It could be a relaxed emotion, melatonin, which helps us to sleep at night. So every thought that stimulates an emotion, or every emotion that stimulates a mind thought, whether it's through a trigger, unconscious trigger that then stimulates something, is creating chemical changes within the body through the brain. The brain is sending out these messages through the spinal cord, because the spinal cord is connected to the brain, and it's creating electrical stimulation, and through chemical electrical stimulation to various aspects of the physiological body. So every habit has an emotional attachment.
Okay.
Every habit has an emotional trigger. So every habit we have, whether it's addiction, and we can call those addictions, whether it's drug addiction, whether it's alcoholism, whether it's gambling or sex addiction or whatever, those are all highly chemical stimulations that create a reaction.
Okay.
And that reaction could be a craving, it could be an urge. And it's a pre-anticipatory expectation of the action that already produces those chemicals before the action.
Okay.
In other words, the alcoholic who's thinking about having a drink is already feeling the experience of that drink. It's already connected in the body. So that craving is stronger than the intellectual reason not to do it. Because the subconscious will always outpower our thoughts. Always. The subconscious is the powerhouse. It's the storehouse. It's like the sun and the planets revolve around the sun. And the more I feel the emotion, the more I'm creating that gravitational pull to have the effect of that emotion. It's quite interesting when we think about the solar system within our brain, our solar system. And so emotional replacement therapy means that under hypnosis or another process or technique, that I'm taking the emotion that's felt in the body, that's also in the mind, I'm taking that activity, and through a systematic desensitization process, I'm taking it from the body and I'm releasing it out of the brain, out of the emotions, out of the body, and I'm lowering the current and deleting it. I'm shutting off the switch so that through the process or processes, the person can no longer experience the anticipatory activity of that experience.
Wow.
So imagine having a fear of something, or imagine, let's do this. Imagine a drug addict thinking about cocaine or some drug or marijuana, but yet they're thinking about it, it's a thought, but there's no more emotional experience to that thought.
Yeah, they're free now.
They're free. Yes. Because if it's a thought without an emotion, then that means that I'm free of the influence of the body connection, of that whole connection to the nervous system, to the nerves within the body, to the urges or the cravings, that I've erased it, deleted it out of the subconscious biocomputer, where it can no longer be accessed, like taking a software program, throwing it into a trash bin, and emptying it so that program is no longer there.
Yeah.
And then what I do is I replace it with a new program, a new software, a new habit, a new positive feeling towards the new habit. Like changing a smoker into somebody that's drinking fresh water, replacing the habit with fresh water. And how that taste of that water tastes so good and purifies the body, cleanses the body of all impurities, bringing the organs back to their natural state of activity, of cleansing. Yeah. So emotion replacement therapy is removing emotion like stress and turning it into a relaxation, deleting it so they can't activate and feel the stress, but they can feel what relaxation or calmness or joy or happiness feels like, or deleting the habit from the subconscious biocomputer, the subconscious, and deleting the expectation of the experience in the body, in the nervous systems, and replacing it with a positive experience that will energize, revitalize the human body. I use this on myself. You know, I have cancer. So I've been living with aggressive advanced prostate cancer. I was
Oh,
given 5 years to live 13 years ago.
13 years.
5 years to live 13 years ago. But I used my science on myself to restore my red blood cells, my white blood cells, to purify the oxygen within my body, to keep the cancer cells at a low state from mutation, and to increase my immune system.
Wow.
And I scientifically have researched and have documented my work on myself.
Okay.
And I tell you, I have the most amazing quality of life that you can ever imagine. All the doctors can't believe the results that I have. And that's because I use the mental science with medical science. I use it and I integrate both sciences together. That's where we are going, is the integration of medical science,
Endocrine system. Yeah.
endocrine system. Here I'm working directly with a doctor,
Yeah.
and we're discussing the spinal cord.
Wow.
Dr. Joey Trujillo, who's one of the doctors that works with me, one of the top anesthesiologists. But in my book, you see, I have it as a science.
Yes.
This is all medical science. This is undeniably medical science. We talk about neurons. We talk about the limbic system. And I discuss how every one of these systems can be directly or indirectly influenced through hypnosis.
Oh my God.
through a frequency receptive state of suggestive transmission to change the activity within the brain, to reconfigure the pathways, the neural pathways within the mind, to create a physiological, emotional, neurological change that could be so effective and so permanent. So hypnosis is one of the best sciences in the world.
Yes.
It needs to be understood correctly. You know, I taught a group of anesthesiologists, these guys, in Holland. I taught a group of anesthesiologists in Holland at the hospital how to utilize hypnosis, the process of hypnosis and suggestion, suggestive linguistical communication, to lower physical sensation, to lower physical sensitivity, to lower pain threshold, so that they can lower the dosage of anesthesia. So most people will not have a negative reaction to anesthesia, because anesthesia, there could be abreactions or poison. Some people die under anesthesia, analgesics.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. When anesthesia was first invented in the 1850s and 1860s, during the days when James Airsdale, who is a Scottish medical doctor stationed in Calcutta, was performing hundreds of surgeries under the influence of hypnosis, which he called mesmerism back in those days. Successful surgeries, removing 100-pound scrotal tumors and other, abnormalities in the mouth and face without excessive bleeding, without sensation of pain. And he documented in his books. I think it's one of the books was something like Hypnotism in India or something like Mesmerism in India by Dr. James Airsdale. So he came to England to talk about the discovery of the influence of hypnosis, lowering the electrical transmission in the nerves of the body. But at that time, anesthesia was being invented, created. And back then, over 50% of the people that were anesthetized with anesthesia died because they didn't know the right dosage to be giving them. The Mayo Brothers, the Mayo Clinic, the Mayo Hospital back in the 1900s, early 1900s, were utilizing hypnotists to influence the reduction of physical sensation, lowering the pain threshold, lowering pain, lowering the influence of I call it sensation. I call pain sensation. And they were able to turn down chemical anesthesia to 15% of its normal dosage.
Wow.
And tremendous success stories. So you see, it's about time that we understand hypnosis, and that we understand that it's important to change the linguistics of hypnosis. It's important to fine-tune people's goals, to micro-tune people in to exactly what it is they want to have in their life. And by saying that, excuse me, I mean that we need to get rid of generalized suggestion and get into pinpoint suggestion. Pinpoint suggestion to create pinpoint accurate success in the hypnotherapy processes. If someone says, I want to be happy, happy is a general term. If someone tells you, they come in and they say, well, I want to be healthy, I want to exercise, and all you're doing as a hypnotherapist is giving them suggestions of being healthy and exercising, it's too general. It's not breaking down and fine-tuning and dissecting what those words actually mean and creating doable, acceptable, accountable goals that the patient or the client can achieve. Because remember, if I can achieve success in a small goal, I can also now be more motivated and confident to achieve success in the medium goal. And I can be more confident and motivated to achieve a success in a long-term big goal.
Big goal.
Yeah. But if I don't take the little steps out of my comfort zone and into an uncomfortable zone that becomes my new comfort zone, I will never change. Because I can be comfortable in being uncomfortable. I can be comfortable in feeling sad or angry because I'm getting a secondary reward or benefit from it. Make sense?
Yes.
How long have we been talking here? It's a little over an hour.
Yes, yeah.
So what else should we talk about today?
This is amazing, Tom. I think again we need to have one more series of. You have so much to share. Excellent, because these were the two major things I wanted to know about, like what is this scientific hypnosis all about, and what is this emotion replacement therapy, and how people can utilize it. And Tom, could you please talk a bit about like people who are interested to get trained in this modality, how they can get trained, and so that people can reach out to you, whoever is interested.
I appreciate that. I think number one, it's important, everyone who's listening to this, it's important to do your due diligence, to find some trainer or teacher who has actually been in the field for many years. Sometimes people think, well, I should be training with this young person because I see him on YouTube or on Hypno Thoughts or somewhere, and they look like they're so great and they're outgoing and they're wearing, flashy clothes and things like that. So they know more than somebody who's been in the field like me for 38 years. And I think that's a mistake because I am a scientific tester and teacher of hypnosis. I continually fine-tune and advance the science of hypnosis because I don't believe we should be using old technology. Do you use a refrigerator that to keep your food cold, you put ice in it like they did in 1910? No. Are you driving around in a 1902 automobile that can only go 20, 30 miles an hour? No. Are you using a computer where you have to put in that software called DOS, that little floppy disk, and operate it? No. So why does hypnosis still stay in a way back in old technology and old science? And it's because a lot of people really are not concerned about what they teach you. They want to teach you, they want to get money from you, and they don't care if you're going to be successful or not. I'm not saying, excuse me, I'm not saying that about everyone, of course. There are some great training courses out there, believe me, some fantastic courses. But I'm saying it's important to get the right education. If I can get the right scientific education in hypnosis and understanding of the applications of the methodologies, the processes, the techniques to create that enhanced focused concentration state that we call hypnosis, that heightened suggestible state, if I can get all the tools and techniques and the mechanics and understand the philosophy from the trainer, then I can become really good at what I learn. And I don't have to go from school to school.
Yes.
It's like, if you understand the philosophy of Buddhism, if you understand Buddha's true philosophy, then you don't have to learn Buddhism in all the 30, 40, 50, hundreds of different belief systems of what Buddhism is.
Yeah.
So it's important to understand the creator or philosopher. Ericksonian or NLP processes. Well, those have all been altered and changed, and what I might call reconfigured training courses. But if I was to observe Milton Erickson on the job, working directly with people, if I was to observe his way of communication, his way of bypassing the conscious through the different metaphors and stories or information that he would be presenting to maybe confuse or tire or weaken the conscious mind and get it out of the way, if I could understand his philosophy and what he was doing, the microisms of who he was, then I can learn the process in its purest fluid form.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to teach, the purest form. So I have a course coming up in July in Malaysia. I'll be back working with Mr. Kong in China. I spent 7 years teaching and training hypnotism in China. I have books out on ERT, on emotional replacement therapy and neurofeedback. See, it's so great because I taught neurofeedback to China.
Wow.
7 years in a row. I mean, how exciting is that?
Yeah.
To be introducing a whole culture to hypnosis as a science, which they're embracing. The professors, the doctors, the other psychologists, they're embracing hypnosis. You can contact me at tom@tomsilver.com, tom@tomsilver.com. I'd love to speak to you. If you have questions or anything, I'm here to present what I have researched and fine-tuned and perfected out to you. I teach one training course, and that's in scientific hypnosis and ERT. How to operate the mind, how to change your own brainwave frequencies. I teach my students how to change their consciousness. Because then you'll realize every one of us are in hypnosis each and every day, many times, hundreds of times, thousands of times a day. The brainwave frequencies are changing. The activity is changing. And remember, the mind operates as a dual processing electrical computer, meaning frequencies, beta, alpha, theta, and delta, and activity that the scientists call mind power, but we can call it amplitude, volume, activity within those frequencies. My goal is to tune down the frequencies, tune down the activity, and then also then to transmit the strongest, most powerful suggestive communication program into that subconscious biocomputer. So you can reach me at tom@tomsilver.com, website tomsilver.com, TOMSILVER.com. Come to my website in Malaysia. I hope to come to India.
Please.
Please, this is my goal. Let's bring scientific hypnosis to India while I'm still able to travel, this year or next year. Let's create a new organization. My organization is the USBCH, United States Board of Clinical Hypnosis. I'm working with Julian in Malaysia, and we've also now created the USBCH, United States Board of Clinical Hypnosis Asia.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, and I'm offering memberships to hypnotists in Asia, memberships to join this organization. Let's work together. Let's understand hypnosis as a powerful science, as a medical science, as a nervous system science, as a neural pathway science, as an operating system science. Let's work together. Let's work together and bring hypnosis really to the truest aspect of acceptance in the real world, in the living world, because it's one of the most powerful, therapeutic, successful processes on earth. It really is. I love the science of hypnosis. I love what I do, and I want to pass it on. I really do. Thank you. So this is our first interview. Let's have a few more.
Sure, sure, Tom. It will be
Yeah.
amazing because your
Yeah.
case studies almost got me the goosebumps because it's like mind-blowing case studies they were. So thank you
Well,
very
and the funny, interesting thing is, it's been 38 years, and I keep learning through the experience of testing.
wow.
Remember, if something doesn't work, that's still a success. Because if it doesn't work the way you want it to work, you can change it, redefine it. You can redirect it. Like Thomas Edison, the filament. Every time he tested the filament and the filament burned out, he knew that was a success because now he could try something different. He gets a code cracker. He was a formula maker. He never failed because the art of experience is a success in itself. And that's how you get good. You get good by living the life of a hypnotist. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. It was wonderful talking to you. Thank you once again.
My pleasure. Thank you. God bless everybody. Thank you.